to bring in David Carlucci, Democratic strategist and former New York State Senator. David, always good to see you. Happy Saturday night. You heard from the former Georgia Congresswoman. We talked about UFC tomorrow. She says she's a fan of the sport, doesn't think it belongs on the White House lawn. We also want to mention that last-minute lawsuit to stop the event. It failed. I don't have to tell you, David, UFC is a divisive sport. Do you feel more Americans agree with Green about this? I mean, we're taking a live look right now behind the White House. That arch, you can't miss it for miles.
Yeah, I think they do. I think the problem here is whether you agree with UFC or not. Personally, I'm not a big fan. I don't like to watch all that violence, but I know there's a lot of people that do. But the bottom line is, why is the president of the United States so involved in having this spectacle on the White House lawn when there are serious issues at hand, and the president is not talking about them? He is not talking about the bread and butter issues that everyone is talking about: the price of gas, the price of common goods, things that President Trump would attack anyone around, but he's not talking about what he's doing to fix the problem. Instead, he's talking about having a fight and everything else except for what really matters to the American people.
Do you expect tomorrow's event to go off without a hitch? I know 4,000 people are expected, not to mention just the huge crowd of people that will come to the nation's capital.
Well, I hope it does. I hope there's not a hiccup. But what is success, right? What is that measurement that you have an event and nothing goes wrong? We hope nothing goes wrong. But what is the purpose? Is it to unite people over a bloody fight? It just is so just foreign to, I think, what this country stands for. Not to have a fight on the White House lawn, but I think it is emblematic of what is going on in the president's head, that everything is a fight, that it can never be win-win. It's always win-lose for this president. And that's what the message, I hope, gets through to the president. We see he's just losing support left and right. And the problem is that he's in control. He is the president of the United States, but yet he blames everything on the Democrats, who are in the minority. And that's a real problem. This was the guy that wrote the book, The Art of the Deal. And we thought we were getting a deal, but we haven't gotten a deal on anything. He can't
David,
make a deal with Democrats, can't make a deal with Iran, we see. The list goes on and on.
I want to bring in Republican strategist Arif Halabi. Well, good to see you again, Arif. I want to talk about the foreign conflict. President Trump saying the memorandum of understanding with Iran will be signed tomorrow. He's also warning of potentially dire consequences if that does not get done. What does the U.S. gain with this proposed agreement?
Yeah, I think the U.S. will gain some security for sure, but it's much more than that. It's the ability to have the dollar continue to be the standard, the petrodollar. 57% of the world's reserve currency is still the U.S. dollar. The low point, if you will, a few years ago was 54%. What that means is very simple, very difficult to just quantify it without a whiteboard. But very clearly it's this. It's the U.S. dominance in the world is very important, both militarily, as been evident with the Maduro raid, of course, with the negotiations to get Mr. Assad out of Syria. Bashir Assad, sorry, his dad is a funny name as well, just like mine. But when you take it all together and you look and see the difference that he made with Iran is simple. You just can't understand a deal that is only one-sided, and the president is very clear on that. His ability to negotiate is there, but you can't just expect one-sided deals. You have a lot of people at play here. Iran is very isolated. You could see how China continued to not give any more information on the U.S. positions, and that's how we were able to get 220 tankers out. I understand David does not like the president. I don't like everything anybody does. But you got to understand his ability to close the border, his ability to get inflation down. Yes, it's peaked in the last couple of months, but the ability to get the trillions of dollars of foreign investment, manufacturing back on track. Unemployment is in the 4%. Remember, Bill Clinton said at 5% we were fully employed.
Are we going by what the president just says, or what actually is the reality on the ground? Because last time I checked, inflation is not down. That's a problem. And a lot of this is self-inflicted. The tariffs, the invasion of Iran.
There's been less than 0.1, 0.2%, depending on the economist, impact in tariffs in inflation. We were at 9.5%. I'm sure you were on here, David, and other places, just talking about how 2022, 2023, the Biden White House was making mistakes. The president brought down inflation. There's no question about it. In addition to all of that, you have to increase the size of the economy. Trillions of dollars of foreign investment, dollars coming back home, trillions of dollars of investment in infrastructure. It takes a couple of years to get that
dollars. Where are you getting this? This is all speculative. If you're talking about real investments, that's one thing. But trillions of dollars, you got to check your math, because we have not
very
seen
simple.
That. And tell that to the American people that are very concerned about the economy, looking for jobs, and everything that we are buying costs more. So
it does,
I don't
because
know
of the
9% success is coming from.
You understand inflation is an addition. It's not a plus minus. It's addition. It only goes one direction. When we had 9% inflation under Joe Biden, again, you still haven't addressed that. 9% inflation under Joe Biden, 8% in some quarters. The trillions of dollars is very simple. I'm getting it from the mouths of the Russian pullback, where dollars are no longer going into Russian coffers. They're staying in the United States. Now you have trade with the United States happening no longer in China, but now back in our
So what
area.
is it that Trump
Ireland
is doing? So let's say I agree with you, but I don't. We don't see this math.
Yeah.
But what is it that Trump's doing that's lowering inflation?
He's doing a couple of things.
You have to grow
the size of the economy
very quickly.
Yeah, you have to grow the size of the economy. That means more dollars have to go in circulation. That means manufacturing has to have jobs. We have some of the largest manufacturing. 170,000 jobs were created, and most of them were non-government jobs. That means real money. You don't have to take from somebody to get a real job in the government system. That's why jobs in the private sector make all the difference.
All right, we will end it there. David Carlucci, Arif Halaby, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining tonight. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday night, guys.
Thanks. Good to be with you.
Good. Oh.